Hello, lovelies. Today we're going to talk about one of the most controversial rides in Disney's history, how it came to be, and why it's gone now. We are going to be talking about Alien Encounter. So this is one of the other things I'm into. I really love his history about theme parks. I love knowing how these rides came into being and why they're gone. So grab your snack, grab your drink, and let's dive into the controversial history of Alien Encounter. Roll the intro. Our tale begins in September 1984 when Mike Eisner, the ex-president of Paramount, then was given the job of being president of the Walt Disney Company. Now, Mike Eisner himself is kind of a controversial opinion in the Disney world. And when he took control of the Disney Company, he looked around the whole parks and everything and thought, wow, they really only cater to children and families here. There's not really a whole lot of rides for teenagers. Because up until this point, it was only like rides in the parks that had no outside influence. They were just Disney. There was nothing like Star Tours. There was no like outside Disney property at the time. It was just strictly Disney rides. And they were all for children. Shortly after getting the job, Eisner decided to start looking at other properties he could incorporate into the parks that teens were really into. This led to collaborations with George Lucas, who, if you didn't know, created Star Wars. And all of this collaboration eventually led to the creation of the first ever Walt Disney ride that wasn't exactly Walt Disney, Star Tours. And thanks to the raging success of Star Tours, it led to Eisner looking for other properties. This one being in the case of the sci-fi horror that was rated R, in a Disney park, Alien. I have notes, so I'm going to look at them. The ride was originally dubbed Nostromo, which is the name of the ship in the movie Alien, if you haven't seen it. And this would take people on a ride, on a rescue mission, aboard the ship Nostromo, armed with laser guns. Kind of like the premise of just shooting targets, like on the Toy Story ride. That would come much later. And you would shoot the xenomorph aliens for a few minutes, I guess. But a lot of senior members of the Disney company were telling Eisner, this isn't a good idea. Walt Disney originally planned for, the parks to be happy and for families and to show a positive look at the future. And the idea of such an R-rated film with such suggestive and horrific content being in the parks was kind of unheard of at the time, and they thought he was crazy. So Eisner was talked out of it for the moment. And he did for a few years, and then we jump to 1989. There was a ride called the Great Movie Ride, elements of Alien, seeing as they still owned the property for Alien. They weren't using it, so they decided to put elements of Alien, including an animatronic scene of one of the parts in Alien where the woman is standing up. I don't know what her name is. I forgot what the actress's name is. But she's standing kind of behind a wall, and the alien is like looking around for her, and she's got a gun, and she's like kind of shaking. This was such a celebrated and applauded scene in the Great Movie Ride, which there's amazing ride-throughs of that on here on YouTube. If you want to go watch the Great Movie Ride, I think it's a really stellar thing. And if you guys would like a video on the Great Movie Ride, I will definitely make that. And around the same time, Tomorrowland was called Futureland, but it was getting a complete overhaul and was being called Tomorrowland. And a lot of things were being shaken up, a lot of rides were closing down, and eventually there was a show building that needed a ride in it. And Michael Eisner had a bunch of young Imagineers kind of brainstorming, and the idea of an alien-inspired ride kind of was brought up again and to the forefront. This was the old Mission to Mars building, is the building that they were looking to put something into. And they wanted to utilize the then, at the time, binaural tech, which means like You would have like sprayers to simulate different like spit or something. If you've ever been in the Bug's Life, It's Tough to Be a Bug show, you know that there's like different elements that are like underneath the floorboards and stuff, like vibrating chairs, basically making use of what you see kind of like happening around you. Like in this case, the alien would like almost feel like it was breathing on you and like blood falling onto you, and it was actually just like water from like above and like sprayers. That's kind of what the binaural tech is. Once the young Imagineers pitched this idea to Eisner, he was so ecstatic about it, and he nearly instantly greenlit this project. All systems go. He wanted this ride so badly. And also, yet again, as soon as word got to the senior members of the Walt Disney Company, they were horrified at the idea of an alien-inspired attraction. I mean, I kind of get it. Walt Disney had this reputation for being for kids, for being for families, and an R-rated attraction. I can kind of see why they didn't want that, but Eisner believed in this ride. He thought it was going to be a star attraction, a focal point to the new and improved, renovated Tomorrowland. And it's said that senior members of the Walt Disney Company got a hold of George Lucas, who Eisner had worked with before, to kind of talk some sense into him. I don't know why they would call in George Lucas of all things. I'm not sure if they were actually friends or not, like personally, but they had collaborated together, and I think it's kind of funny that they legit called in George Lucas to be like, hey, he's going off the rails again. He wants this alien ride. George, we need you to talk some sense into your pal over there, because he's not listening to us. I don't know why I find that so funny, but I do. This must have worked because eventually, shortly after, Eisner went into his Imagineers and said, guys, we gotta drop the Alien franchise. So, you guys gotta come up with a whole new monster and a whole new concept for this building. They wanted a less frightening concept and a less frightening monster for this whole thing. And George Lucas was also now a producer on the ride, which I guess kind of in turn gave the senior Imagineers this kind of like, it's okay because George Lucas is working on it. I don't know why that like suddenly like made it okay with them, but with the loss of the Alien franchise as like its anchor to the whole concept and the ride, a lot of Imagineers believed that the wind had gone from this new ride's sails. This new ride had to be alien themed, but not based on the Alien franchise. And so in 1992, Mission to Mars had closed its doors to make way in preparation for this new ride. And then came the disaster that was Euro Disney World. If you don't know what Euro Disney World was, it was basically a European Disneyland that they wanted to put in Europe. And when it opened, it completely just did not make sales. It was a total disaster, and it cost Disney a lot of money. And this also caused the cost-cutting era of Disney, where they cut a lot of corners, they did a lot of things that would save them any money at all. And this included the expansion onto Tomorrowland. So they kind of canceled a few projects, like the revamping of the Walt Disney's Flying Saucers, and they kind of cut that project and a few other ones in favor of a smaller expansion that was going to be focused in the Magic Kingdom for that. And now with all the pressure being on this new Alien ride, and then the Imagineers were being forced to create this whole new monster, this whole new concept, this whole new story, it put a lot of pressure on them because they had to have this whole thing ready for the opening of Magic Kingdom's Tomorrowland. The whole new thing, they had to have this ride done then. And so it put a lot of pressure, and it made a lot of Imagineers frustrated because now it was crunch time on this, basically. Which I don't blame them, because coming up with a whole new concept when you're originally going in with one thing sounds really fucking hard. I mean, imagine going in being told that you were going to work on, let's say, I don't know, a Grudge ride, and they decided to be like, no, even though you have this whole thing ready, you have half of this concept ready for this new Grudge ride. And then they're like, oh no, you need to base it around a whole new ghost and it can't be scary. Not at all. No jump scares. Oh, and you got 3 weeks to do it. I gotta say, I'd be frustrated as well. In 1994, the alien encounter finally began what's called soft openings. Basically, they're just like a test run, with like a few select people to go in and test the ride. The new concept revolved around a company called XS Tech, and they had rented out a show building to display to guests their use of teleportation technology, which during one of the pre-shows, Tyra Banks is actually one of the alien scientists in the pre-show. I didn't know that. Here they would demonstrate their new teleportation tubes. First, and instead of the intended target that they wanted to, put into the teleportation tube to teleport, they ended up grabbing a horrific alien from an unknown planet, and it breaks loose and starts terrorizing the audience. Starts completely just like breathing on people. There's screaming. There's just lots of noise. You hear the two people that are supposed to be working the teleportation tubes are trying to get someone to get in there and fix the tube and get that alien out of there. And one of the maintenance guys fixes it, but then gets unalived by the alien, and it's shown depicted of him being eaten by the alien that's loose, and his warm blood water, it just falls down onto the audience, and this causes more screaming and more chaos. And I actually think this is actually really cool to me. I think it sounds cool. Eventually, they get the tubes working, and they get the alien back inside the tube and get rid of it. And then the lights come on, and they apologize for any inconvenience done to the audience and kind of just shoo them outside, and that's the end of the ride. And that is what Alien Encounter was. A lot of people loved this ride. Loved it. But there was a lot of backlash from both parents and families saying it was too frightening, that the story was too hard to understand. And so Eisner decided to close down the ride for now and do a lot of changes. This began months of reworking, hiring a new voice for the second pre-show, rewriting that pre-show. The new voice being, of all people, Tim Curry. And it had a more sinister tone to it, kind of warning you for the horrors that you were going to experience now. And after months of reworking, after only 6 weeks of being open for soft showings, it closed down for months. They did all this reworking, they did all this revamping, and then they opened it up in 1995. And at this time, Eisner had already started, distancing himself from the project. He didn't really want anything else to do with it. And then when it finally opened, even though a lot of people said it was easier to follow the story of what was actually happening and that they were grateful for the more sinister second pre-show, it still had a lot of backlash from families, from parents, saying that it was too scary, that they couldn't believe Disney would make such a terrifying ride in the Magic Kingdom. And so only after 8 years of it being opened, it was closed down permanently. That's kind of... Oh yeah, and the alternate ending, which instead of just sending the alien away, they thought it would be better for it to explode onto the audience from the tube. They thought it would be easier to have the alien just blow up onto people. I don't know why that was the alternate ending they went with, but yeah. And in 2003, it would become Stitch's Great Escape, which is basically like the same thing, and it was hit with even more controversy as Stitch's Great Escape, because it was basically just the same thing as Extraterrestrial Alien Encounter, but reskinned basically to Stitch being the menacing creature in the tube. And that really did a lot of things for Disney as well, because they basically just said, well, there's no creativity. You're using the same thing as extraterrestrial alien encounter. There's nothing. There's no spice to this. It's the same exact thing. So why just Stitch? And now the show building is closed because they closed down Stitch's Great Escape as well. So that's the history of extraterrestrial alien encounter. Let me know what you guys thought about this. I think it was a great ride. I think they could bring this back, especially now with the technology that they have now. I really think that they could bring this back and make it so cool, so incredible. And you know that there's a lot of people now that would totally be for this ride. Let me know what you would think. Would you ride this? If they were to bring it back, would you ride that? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, if you guys liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, please do. It does help my channel. I am trying to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. And if I do hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, I will be doing a giveaway. Also, if you would like to share this, it would also help me get to 1,000 subscribers. Yeah, and hit the notification bell so you're always notified for when I post a new video. I really want to know what your thoughts are about this, and if you guys would like to see more of these kind of like theme park kind of videos, because I would like to do them. So yeah, that's everything. I hope you like this video, and I hope you guys have a great, wonderful day. Bye.